Chapter 1. Hey there, sleepyheads. Tonight we start with a whisper. Not just any whisper, though. This one rides the desert wind, curling through crumbled archways and dust-silvered courtyards, nudging faded silk banners that haven't flown in centuries. You're standing just outside Samarkand, where the stars crowd close and the moon rises lazy like it's got nowhere else to be. Tea scent in the air, old rose oil, fresh dust, and something a little metallic, like forgotten tears. You're not here by accident. This is where it all began, or maybe where it ended. Tea Palace looms in front of you, its domes cracked and mosaic tiles flaking like the memory of a lullaby. Once it pulsed with music, the kind that slips under your skin and makes your heart do curious things. Now, just the sigh of wind through broken stone. If these walls could talk, they'd shiver first. So here's your cheeky reality check. This story is very old and a little cursed. You probably won't survive this night without goosebumps and several inconvenient questions about the afterlife. Maybe don't look too hard at that archway. It blinked. Anyway, before you tuck in and drift off, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy the weird, wild stuff I do here. I'm not haunted yet. And while you're at it, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Whether it is midnight in Mumbai, 2 a.m. in Ohio, I want to know which shadows are stretching across your floor. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge forward through an arch that shouldn't still be standing. It leans like it's drunk on memory, and the second your foot crosses into the courtyard, the air changes. It's like stepping into water you didn't know was there, thick, cool, expectant. Samarkand, jewel of the East, pearl of the Silk Road, and also, according to at least one scrappy monk with questionable hygiene, the city that once disappeared for 100 years after a bride said no. Historians still argue whether that's metaphor or madness, but either way, this place doesn't sit right with time. Things here forget how to be linear. Your boots click against stone riddled with moss and time. Vines creep up mosaics that once showed peacocks and pomegranates. Now they just look like teeth. Somewhere, faintly, music hums, plucked strings from an instrument nobody plays anymore. Maybe it's in your head, maybe not. And then there she is. Not in the flesh, of course. That would be too easy. She's everywhere and nowhere, her name inked on the wind, her laughter stitched into the cracks of the walls. The princess. People call her Shahzadi, daughter of the moon, bride of no man. You don't know her yet, but you already feel the story shifting. The floor under your feet is thicker now, like it's made of memory instead of marble. The stones remember, they just don't forgive. You duck through a scorched doorway, probably fire, probably vengeance, and find yourself in what might have once been a throne room. The ceiling's gone, and so are most of the walls, but something about the space still crackles. A velvet scrap clings to a pillar like it's refusing to admit defeat. Above you, stars glitter like they've been waiting for you. There's a pedestal in the center, cracked straight through like someone slammed a fist on the very heart of this place. And on it, a single piece of parchment, miraculously intact. You reach for it, because of course you do. It smells like cloves and storm water. The writing is in Persian, the ink faded to rust brown. You can barely make out the words. He came from the dark between years, where silence sings and shadow hears. I married a man who left no trace. My ghost, my groom, my curse, my grace. Yeah, definitely cursed. You look up, half expecting a shadow to crawl across the courtyard. Nothing, just the hush. But now the air is different, charged like before a thunderstorm. The past is waking up. She was born here, you know, right in this palace, right as the walls were falling. The year was 1220, and Genghis Khan's armies had reached the gates of Samarkand. Mongol horsemen, ferocious, fast, and very not into diplomacy, stormed the city, leaving behind only ash, whispers, and the kind of trauma that gets passed down through generations via lullabies sung in cracked voices. That's when the princess was born. Her mother, a concubine turned unlikely queen, gave birth in a hidden chamber beneath the palace, while the ceiling trembled with the weight of siege. According to legend, or some guy named Bahram who once carved his name into a turtle shell, the moment she cried her first cry, the invading general's horse stumbled, snapped its leg, and threw him into a dry well. Was it true? Depends on who you ask, but people started calling her cursed or blessed, depending on their political leanings. You picture it, a newborn swaddled in embroidered silk, tucked in her mother's trembling arms as smoke drifts through the grates above. The city burns. The air outside howls, and she blinks up at it all like she already knows how this ends. You wander through the remnants of her nursery, if that's what this room was. There's a broken mirror in the corner, half covered in dust, and an iron cradle charred black. Something slithers behind a fallen tapestry. Just a lizard? Probably. As she grew, the palace shrank. Not literally, but emotionally. Her father, whoever he had been, didn't live long after the siege. Maybe killed in battle, maybe something quieter. Poison slipped into his apricot wine. Mongols don't tend to keep around rebellious local kings. That much is a fact. So the princess grew up in silence, in shadow, in the parts of the palace that no longer belonged to any empire. The few servants who stayed behind spoke in hushed tones and avoided her eyes. They said she walked like someone being followed, even when no one was there, especially when no one was there. By the time she was 12, the locals had begun calling her Aruzise, the Bride of Shadows, not to her face, of course, just in market whispers and late-night stories meant to keep children inside after dusk. Princess with a phantom for a playmate, a girl who talked to doorways, who sang to the stars in a language no one had taught her. And she was lonely. Don't forget that. Being feared isn't the same as being loved. Sometimes she'd climb to the top of the broken minaret and shout questions into the sky. Not prayers, questions. Why me? Where did he go? Are you real? Who the he was, no one knew. Yet, a fringe theory that pops up in a few obscure scrolls claims she vanished for 7 years as a teenager, spirited away by jinn or desert monks. But other accounts insist she stayed in Samarkand, haunting its empty halls, drawing strange sigils in dust and ash. Historians still argue whether she actually left or simply stopped being seen. You pause near a wall half devoured by ivy. Someone, or maybe, scratched a symbol into it with what looks like obsidian, a spiral with teeth. It hums faintly. Your fingertips tingle. Maybe don't touch it. Back outside, the courtyard is different. You swear the moon was higher a minute ago. The stars have shifted. There are more of them, closer. Or maybe you're slipping backward, into her time, into her footsteps. The first ghost appeared when she was 17. Not a ghost in the white sheet sense. No moaning, no chains, just a man, or the shape of one, watching her from across the courtyard. Always at dusk. Never closer. He wore robes that flickered in and out of phase like they were made of candlelight and regrets. His face was always turned slightly away, yet she knew, absolutely knew, he was watching only her. Everyone thought she was going mad. Until one morning, her maid found boot prints in the dew, prints that walked right up to her door and vanished. No one entered, no one left. By now, you're realizing something important. This isn't a ghost story, not really. It's a love story. And like all the best love stories, it starts with doom. The wind picks up again. The parchment on the pedestal flutters and lifts slightly before settling. The shadows grow longer. Somewhere behind you, a door creaks open, or maybe it never closed. Chapter 2. You step through the open door before you can change your mind. It's low and crooked, framed by crumbling brick and the scent of something not quite alive, spiced incense, damp stone, regret. You duck under a vine, brushing aside the webs that haven't seen a broom since the Crusades, and enter a chamber so dark it feels carved out of sleep itself. Your eyes adjust slowly. This room is older than the rest. You can feel it, not just in the cold or the way the air drapes over your shoulders like a wet shroud, but in the weight of it. The silence is ancestral. A tapestry still hangs on the far wall, half eaten by time. It shows a crowned woman riding a lion, flame twisting from her fingertips. She's wearing the same spiral with teeth symbol you saw outside, stitched right into her cloak in gold thread. Her eyes are bright. Her mouth is open, mid-word or mid-curse. At the center of the room, a dais made of jet black marble, cracked and restitched with molten silver veins. There's a small wooden box placed on top. It looks simple, but you know better by now. You don't touch it. Instead, you look around. You're not alone here. Oh, not ghosts. Not yet. Just history. History thick enough to stick to your shoes. And in this chamber, the story of the princess takes its next breath. She was no longer a child. By 17, she had outlived 2 tutors, 4 suitors, and one would-be assassin who somehow managed to drown in a dry fountain. Suspicious? Extremely. But she never blinked when they whispered her name afterward. She simply went on feeding her birds. Yes, she kept doves, and reading strange books written in alphabets no one else could place. She lived here alone, though not unloved. One elderly eunuch named Dastan stayed behind when the court scattered. He taught her how to brew sleep tonics from dried lotus petals and how to read people's eyes. He also, according to a popular theory found scribbled in the margins of a medieval cookbook, once fed a man to a leopard for insulting her eyebrows. Her eyebrows were excellent, but outside these dusty walls, things kept falling apart. The Mongol Empire stretched wider and stranger with every year. Persian warlords squabbled over trade routes and tribute. Nobody remembered the little girl born the night the city fell, except one man. Well, one thing. You remember the ghost from before, the man-shaped shadow at dusk, the one who never moved, never spoke. One day he moved. It happened without ceremony. She was watering her pomegranate trees. The heat had softened everything, even her bones. And then suddenly, she wasn't alone in the garden. He stood by the broken fountain, arms at his sides, eyes shadowed. His feet left no imprint in the dirt, no sound, not even a breeze shifted his robes. But he was there. She saw him. And more importantly, he saw her. She didn't scream. She tilted her head, as if meeting a musician whose song she'd heard before, played faintly through a wall. "Are you mine?" she asked. No reply, but he raised his hand. Not a wave, a gesture, a calling. She stepped forward. You follow her now, your fingers grazing the cold marble as if to steady yourself. The air in the chamber tightens, and somewhere far off, you swear you hear a crow caw 3 times. That's never a good sign in folklore. Historians still argue whether this specter was a hallucination, a curse, or something far more interesting. A time slip, maybe. A traveler from another realm caught in a loop, or, as one particularly bold anthropologist once said in a footnote, possibly a djinn in emotional crisis. The one fact remains, from that day forward, she was changed. She stopped speaking at meals. She wrote long letters in a script no scholar has ever successfully translated. She refused to meet with visiting nobles or local warlords. When her old tutor returned to warn her of another siege brewing to the east, she listened politely and then asked, "What language do ghosts dream in?" He did not return. You run your hand over the surface of the wooden box. It's warmer than it should be. Inside, there are whispers. You don't open it, because this is a bedtime story and not a cautionary tale carved into a headstone. Still, you hear things. That year, the princess vanished from public view entirely. Her face no longer graced any coins. No messenger spoke her name. The servants stopped leaving food outside her chambers. The silk banners bearing her house's crest were taken down, by someone or something. 7 months passed, and then, one night, under a bruised sky swollen with stars, the ghost returned. This time, the palace woke to bells. Not the metallic clang of warning, but soft, golden chimes. Wind bells crafted from bone and bronze, swaying though the air was still, and on the threshold of the palace gate, a single red slipper. The next day, a feast was announced, her first public event in over a year, and though no invitations were sent, every room in the palace filled. Warlocks from Urgench, widowed queens from the Caucasus, one Mongol general with 7 owls and a golden axe. They came to see if the rumors were true. If the princess had, in fact, married something not entirely alive. She had. The ceremony was brief. No priest officiated, only the wind, the stars, and the spiral mark etched into the garden stones. Vows were spoken in a language no one had heard before or since. When she kissed him, her mouth turned slightly blue, just for a second. And when they disappeared into the palace afterward, the guests didn't toast. They prayed. You circle the days. Something scratches faintly at the edge of your hearing. Not a mouse. Not wind, something else. A rustle of parchment, a whisper from a mirror. Did she love him? Who knows? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the better one is, what happens when you marry someone the world doesn't believe exists? Because things didn't get better after the wedding. Oh no. They got stranger. The sky above Samarkand began to behave oddly. Days would stretch long and blue into the hours of night. Stars realigned. One morning, it rained fish. Another, people reported hearing laughter echo from dry wells. And then, of course, there was the matter of the cats. Dozens of black cats began appearing in the palace. They watched. They followed. They nested in her rooms and hissed at anyone who tried to touch her. When an envoy from Cairo arrived with a betrothal offer on behalf of a caliph, one of the cats leaped from a windowsill and sank its claws into the envoy's throat. He left quickly. She was no longer just a princess. She was something else. a woman outside the boundaries of kingdom, religion, and time. The people began calling her Malika Biaban, the Queen of Nowhere. One theory, from a slightly caffeinated 19th century Belgian explorer, claimed she unlocked a door between worlds that night she said her vows. That her husband wasn't a ghost at all, but an echo from a future long past, sent backward to find her, to tether history to myth with a single kiss. Another theory said she made him up, and that power, belief, and love conjured him into form. Yet another claims she died young, and everything afterward is a ghost memory, yours maybe. The truth? You're standing in the last place they were seen together. The day still holds the box, and above it, etched faintly into the stone, a line. To remember is to believe twice. The floor creaks softly behind you. No one there, but the air smells of rose and sandalwood now. You turn back toward the door you entered through, but it's not there anymore. Of course it isn't. This palace never lets go. Not once you've heard her story. Not once you've stepped where she walked. And you have so much further to go. Chapter 3. You find your way out, eventually. Not through the door you came in, because that door is now a blank wall smugly pretending it never existed, but through a crack in the stone that wasn't there moments ago. You sidle sideways through it, brushing against chill rock and something that smells unsettlingly like cardamom and ozone. On the other side, moonlight greets you again. A courtyard, different from the last, sprawls before you, quieter, somehow lonelier. A fountain in the center coughs out a few droplets, then falls silent. And above, the stars blink slowly, as if deciding whether to continue watching. You're not alone. Again. There's a caravan in the distance, inching across the sand. Lanterns bob like fireflies on stilts, and the air is filled with the faint, rhythmic squeak of wheels that haven't been oiled since the invention of algebra. The princess is with them, hidden, traveling under a false name. Because this is where her exile begins, she left the palace not in shame or in fear, but in pursuit. Her ghost groom, it turns out, was not content to remain confined to walls and whispers. His presence had started to bleed out. People in neighboring villages reported seeing a man with flickering robes appear at crossroads and riverbanks. Children started talking to invisible uncles. More worryingly, several key figures, including a spice merchant from Bukhara, were found walking in circles, muttering the princess's name over and over before collapsing into sleep so deep it couldn't be broken. Something was happening, something big. So she left. Not alone, of course, never alone. She disguised herself as a minor noblewoman from Tabriz, Sid Omat, which translates roughly to Lady of Death, very subtle, and the caravan she joined was more than it seemed. You start walking now, trailing behind the group as they sway forward. A few camels rumble. A small boy tries to balance a sack of saffron on his head. A woman with sun-creased skin sells you a date stuffed with almonds, and possibly a sliver of opium. You take a bite. It tastes like memory and mild rebellion. The desert stretches on forever. You feel it in your bones. A dry, crackling heat even at night. The kind of silence that tells stories. This was the Silk Road. Yes, that Silk Road. A vast, looping network of trade routes that stitched together Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. It moved more than silk. Knowledge, faith, disease, recipes, gossip. It was the original internet, just slower and with more camels. And it's here, in this winding web of traders and travelers, that the princess slips between identities. To one group, she's a widow en route to Mecca. To another, a disgraced mathematician fleeing scandal. To another still, a herbalist with a talent for healing dreams. But always the same trail of rumors follows her. Strange lights, cold spots, and ghostly footprints that vanish in sand. You sit beside her one night. She offers you tea. Have you ever been followed by something that didn't cast a shadow? She asks. You want to say yes, but your tongue forgets how to form the word. Each night, someone in the caravan wakes screaming. One man swears he dreamed of a woman with spiralized whispering. He's not what you think. Another dreams of water boiling backward. A third just mutters, not again, until he bites through his own tongue. No one leaves, though. That's the strange thing. Despite the fear, the heat, the occasional auditory hallucinations involving flutes playing underwater, the caravan stays together. Drawn, maybe. Bound. One night, a merchant asks her name. She smiles, that particular smile that's almost a warning. Call me whatever you like, she says, but don't ask twice. He asks twice. He disappears that night. In his place, the next morning, sits a child who doesn't speak, doesn't blink, and clutches a silver ring too large for his fingers. The road twists after that. Not literally, of course, except maybe yes, literally. Distances get weird. People stop recognizing the stars. A woman who claims to be from Kashgar starts speaking perfect Akkadian in her sleep. Someone swears they saw a Roman soldier riding a yak. And one afternoon, the caravan passes a small shrine that none of the maps show, covered in offerings of teeth and marigolds. At its base, a carving. The spiral with teeth. She doesn't look surprised. You follow her again that night, past the sleeping tents, into the dunes. She stands at the edge of a shallow ravine, her cloak billowing in wind that doesn't touch you. Her hand rests on her stomach. "He's growing stronger," she murmurs. You want to ask who. You don't. Behind her, a shadow moves. He steps forward, your ghost groom, flickering like an old film. His features are clearer now. His jaw is sharp. His eyes are hollow. His skin seems made of whatever exists behind eyelids, something soft, dark, and constantly shifting. She doesn't look at him, but he looks at her. The wind stops. A whisper rises, not from the ghost, not from her, but from the sand. Names have power, and yours has been said too many times. She nods like she already knew that. Maybe she did. You take a step back. Then another. But the princess doesn't move. She simply holds her gaze on horizon. And the ghost lifts his hand, not to touch her, but to shield her. From something. From what's coming. By dawn, the caravan has changed. Half the people are gone. No one remembers them. New travelers have joined, speaking in riddles and wearing robes stitched with thread that hums. One man carries a jar that sloshes even though he never opens it. One woman keeps her face covered with a mirror. She doesn't blink. You checked. The princess blends in again. She changes her name once more, Zara now. Flower, light. Her eyes still scan the distance, always. Watching for something she won't name. You're beginning to wonder. Is she following the ghost? Or is he following her? Either way, the road continues. And ahead, always just ahead, is a destination she refuses to say aloud. You travel for days, maybe weeks. Time forgets how to be reliable. One morning, the caravan stops by a cracked oasis where the water moves like mercury and reflects things that aren't there. She sits beside it, sketching spirals in the dirt. You ask her why she left the palace. She looks at you for a long moment and says, "Because love isn't enough when the world keeps pulling." And before you can ask what she means, the reflection in the water flickers. You look. You see a palace with no roof, a man with no eyes, a woman in a red dress standing in a library with walls made of glass. You blink. It's gone. When you turn back, she's already walking away. That night, as the moon rises bloated and strange, the caravan crosses into land that no one marks on maps anymore. And somewhere far, far behind you, Samarkand forgets her name. Chapter 4. You wake up underground, not in a scary, buried alive kind of way, more like you've drifted sideways in time and ended up in a cavern carved from ink and memory. The air is cool, soft with dust. You breathe it in and taste parchment, oil lamps, and something older, something coppery and ancient, like rusted armor and dried out prophecy. You're not sure how you got here. But then again, you are following the princess, and she always knows where she's going, even when the world forgets. The ceiling above is painted with constellations just slightly wrong. You recognize Orion, but his belt has an extra star. The North Star hums faintly when you look at it too long, and a comet streaks across a fresco that's supposed to be static. Welcome to the library beneath Baghdad, or rather, what's left of it. You walk forward, your footsteps muffled by layered dust. Row upon row of carved stone shelves loom around you. Some have toppled. Some lean like they're confiding in one another, but many still stand. Crackling scrolls wrapped in brittle silk and bound books with no titles, just symbols that flicker when you glance away. You spot a small bronze plaque, half buried under collapsed mortar. The engraving reads, Ashurbanipal's Ghost Archive, handle carefully. Yeah, sure, totally comforting. This place, it shouldn't exist. Most people remember Ashurbanipal, the Assyrian king from the 7th century BCE, as the guy who built the first systematically organized library in Nineveh. A collection of over 30,000 tablets, meticulously cataloged on clay shelves. Historians credit him with trying to preserve civilization's early brain cells. But there's a lesser-known legend circulating in dusty back rooms of museums and in the margins of letters never delivered, that some parts of that library moved underground when Nineveh fell. Not metaphorically. Physically, like the books and scrolls simply vanished beneath the earth, dragging their secrets with them. And this is supposedly where they ended up, beneath Baghdad, hidden and mostly forgotten, like a scar under a sleeve. The princess arrives 3 days after the caravan breaks. You remember the caravan, that long train of merchants, misfits, and mystics? Well, it fractured a fork in the road. Some kept west toward Damascus, some turned back, some just walked into the desert and never looked behind them. The princess and her shadow husband veered south. They traveled by night, following a river that wasn't always there, and then one morning they simply weren't above ground anymore. No one saw them descend. No one knew the entrance existed. But somehow she found the library. She always finds the things that don't want to be found. You catch up with her in a room so wide it holds its own echo. She's sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by scrolls unfurling themselves like they've been waiting for her. She hums softly, a lullaby you think you recognize but can't place. The ghost is there too, only now he seems dimmer, fainter around the edges, like a candle in the wind. His fingers brush the edges of the scrolls, but he never touches them. He won't. He can't. You watch as she reads one aloud. Her voice is soft, nearly a whisper. If a soul forgets its name, it may walk, but not belong. Love, when stretched across the veil, is memory rewritten wrong. A chill runs down your spine. Not fear, exactly, just the feeling of being very noticed by something older than your language. The scroll snaps shut. She sighs. These were written by the dead, she says. You ask her why she's here. To find out what he is, she answers, gesturing at the flickering man beside her. What I married. You think she's joking. She's not. She dives into the scrolls with a kind of manic grace, reading with her whole body, as though the words might run away if she doesn't catch them fast enough. The library seems to respond, opening new passageways, revealing hidden shelves. The ghost follows silently, never speaking. His eyes, when you can bear to meet them, are voids where stories go to vanish. And the more she reads, the more things change. The walls get wetter, dripping, breathing almost. One passage is lined with jars, each one sealed with wax and labeled in a dead script. One of them whispers your name when you walk by. You do not open it. In the innermost chamber, you find a table covered in slates of obsidian. They're warm to the touch and vibrate faintly when the princess lays her hands on them. They remember, she says. What? You ask. Everything, she replies. Somewhere in the stacks, you hear laughter. Not the nice kind. Not really any kind you'd like to hear again. And that's when the rats show up. They're not normal rats. Their eyes glow blue, their fur is patchy, and some wear tiny collars of bronze. One is carrying a scroll. One is whispering. You don't catch the words, but you hear your own heartbeat respond to them. The princess doesn't flinch. She just smiles faintly and says, "They're the librarians." Because of course they are. According to a fringe theory whispered by a Sufi mystic in the 13th century, some libraries are alive. And the ones that survive history's burnings and bombings and betrayals, they adapt, hide, camouflage, turn into caves, and let rats handle the returns. You find one scroll that tells of a queen in ancient Sogdia who married a wind spirit to keep her people safe. Another mentions a ritual in which a bride swears fealty to a name no human tongue can say, binding her to a being born before light. The princess reads them all. She doesn't sleep. She starts drawing again, symbols on stone, on paper, on her own skin. The ghost watches, but more distantly now. You think maybe he's fading, or maybe something in this place frightens even him. Then you find the room full of mirrors. Not actual mirrors, just polished obsidian panels that reflect not your face, but your memories. You pass by one and see yourself at age 7, hiding under a table during a thunderstorm. Another shows you last Tuesday, but the reflection keeps blinking out of sync. She steps in front of one and sees herself as a child, then as an old woman, then as a flicker of lightning across a battlefield. Who am I if not a story? She murmurs. You don't answer. Because really, what are you anymore? The ghost walks past the mirrors. None of them show anything, just cracks. She spends one final day in the library. You follow her to the oldest chamber carved so deep into the earth. The air tastes like coins and longing. There's a pedestal in the center with a single book bound in gray leather. The title shimmers, How to Love What Cannot Stay. She touches it. The ghost shudders. The walls close in. Not literally, but the light changes. The heat rises. Something is ending. I have to leave him, she says, voice quiet. Why, you ask. She closes the book. Because I finally understand what I married. And then the rats scatter. The library groans, and you run. You burst into daylight, a sliver of it at least. The city above is unfamiliar now. Baghdad, yes, but older and stranger. A half-remembered version stitched together from dreams and sand. She steps out beside you. The ghost does not. She doesn't cry. Neither do you. But you both feel it, that shift, that loss, that choice. And just before the entrance crumbles behind you, you hear a voice echo from the dark. Love me, even if I am only a shadow. And then nothing. Just dust. And a sky that suddenly remembers how to weep. Chapter 5. You don't speak for a while. Neither does she. The city above, Baghdad, if it still wants to be called that, greets you with incense and ash. Its skyline is riddled with minarets that lean like tired dancers, domes patched in gold leaf and old blood. The air hums with call to prayer, marketplace haggling, and something subtler, older, like the rustle of a god changing their mind. She pulls her hood low. The desert sun has teeth today. And you're just trying to keep up. Because even though she left the ghost behind, in that whispering, rat-infested crypt of memory, she didn't come out unchanged. She doesn't walk like she used to. She doesn't blink as often. And her shadow? Well, her shadow keeps lagging just a beat behind, like it's listening to a different drum. You pass a row of shopkeepers selling spells disguised as spices. One tries to hand you a jar of saffron and tells you it calms the haunt. You decline. Another offers you a carved walnut and says, it remembers dreams. You almost take it, but the princess grabs your wrist and shakes her head. No more memory, she says. We're full. You're not sure if she's talking about herself or you. Now listen closely. This part of the story, it isn't glamorous. There are no dancing spirits, no silk-draped banquets, no ghostly groom shimmering in the moonlight. There's just exhaustion and decision. Because the truth is, when you marry a ghost, the real problem starts when you try to live with it. Every city feels haunted now. Every step echoes. Every alley leads back to something familiar and wrong. Her sleep is shallow. Her hair starts to gray, not at the temples, but in odd little streaks that shimmer when she frowns. And worst of all, people begin to forget her. It starts subtly. A street vendor calls her that girl even after buying from her for weeks. An innkeeper writes down 2 guests, not 3. A child she helps across a stream runs home and tells his mother, I crossed alone. She's unraveling, but not disappearing. She's just becoming background, peripheral, like a smudge on glass you don't notice until someone points it out. Is this what he felt? She wonders aloud one afternoon, staring into a cracked mirror. He, you ask. She doesn't answer, just tightens her cloak and keeps walking. The princess moves east now. The path leads through the Zagros Mountains, jagged, wild, and splintered with cold. The air thins. The world narrows. Every village is a shrug of stone and smoke, clinging to the cliffs like barnacles. And somewhere between the 10th and 12th prayer call of the day, she meets a woman who changes everything. Her name is Arzu. You meet her in a tea house balanced on a rock shelf where the clouds drift beneath your feet. She serves you rose tea in clay cups with jagged edges. She has 1 eye, 3 teeth, and a laugh that makes your bones feel embarrassed. Tell me what you're running from, Arzu demands, staring directly at the princess. I'm not running. You're not staying either. They talk all night, and you learn things. You learn that Arzu isn't just some mountaintop mystic with a knack for nosiness. She's the keeper of breaks. Capital B, she tends to people who've crossed thresholds they weren't supposed to survive. Lovers who buried the wrong heart. Warriors who died, then changed their minds. Children who remember futures that never happened. And she's met others like the princess. Not many, but some. You didn't just marry a ghost, Arzu says. You bound yourself to a fracture in the pattern. That kind of love, it leaves stretch marks in time. The princess flinches. But you're lucky, Arzu continues. Most people who fall for the dead don't walk away with their heartbeat intact. And I did, she whispers. Arzu only smiles. It's not a nice smile. You ask the obvious question, so what now? Arzu pours more tea, sprinkles something in it that smells like forgotten names. You go north, she says. There's a man there, a historian. He keeps records of impossible marriages. That sounds made up, right? It's not. 2 days later, after climbing switchback trails and avoiding wolves made of smoke and broken promises, don't ask, you reach a monastery carved directly into the face of a cliff. It has no door, only a curtain of wind that parts if you hum the right note. The note, of course, is the first line of the lullaby the princess once sang in the palace garden. Inside, scrolls, artifacts, dust, and the man himself, old, bent, and wearing 5 pairs of spectacles, stacked atop each other like a very tired totem pole. He's the custodian. No one knows his name anymore. Maybe he forgot it, but he remembers everything else. And when he sees her, he sighs and says, "You're late." He takes you into a room with walls covered in parchment and thread. It's like standing inside a spiderweb made of family trees. Every strand connects people to memories, loves to losses, lives to hauntings. He points to a single thread, frayed, silver, and tangled with itself. "Yours," he says, "a binding made in error." She stares. "You married a memory," he says softly, "one that wasn't finished being born." "Then how do I undo it?" she asks. He chuckles. "You don't." She closes her eyes. "Then how do I survive it?" He pauses. "That," he says, "is a better question." What follows isn't a spell, not a ritual, nothing dramatic, just a choice. You can't unlove him, the custodian says, but you can move the love somewhere else. She nods. And that's when she decides she won't banish him, she won't forget, but she will reshape what it means to carry him. From that moment, she begins leaving pieces behind. A silver ring buried at the base of a pine. A scroll rewritten in her own blood, hidden in a monk's sleeve. A mirror given to a child who dreams of rain. Every object takes a bit of the ghost with it. Every act a splinter, lovingly placed. She's not exorcising him, she's dispersing him, like ashes in the wind. And slowly, she comes back into focus. Shopkeepers remember her again. Strangers greet her. Her shadow stops lagging. She laughs once. It sounds real. You ask her what it feels like. Like being my own person again, she says, and still loving what tried to erase me. You leave the monastery lighter, not because the ghost is gone. He isn't. He never will be. But because now she knows what to do with him. You walk through a meadow of wild thyme. The wind smells like honey and something sharp. Freedom, maybe. She turns to you, ready to go home. You hesitate. Where's home now? She grins. Wherever we decide the story continues. And just like that, the road bends forward again. The mountains behind you crumble into mist. And ahead, a city that remembers everything. Even the things the world tries to forget. Chapter 6. You arrive in a city that shouldn't exist. Not because it's mythical or invisible or hidden by ancient curses, though to be fair, it might be. No, this city shouldn't exist because it's made entirely of memory. You walk through its gates and feel your pulse stutter. The walls are built from forgotten doorways. The rooftops shimmer with languages no one speaks anymore. People pass by in robes stitched from yesterday's dreams. The air smells like burnt sugar and secrets you never confessed. She looks completely at home. This is the Archive City. No name, no map. Just a place that remembers everything, especially the things the rest of the world decided to forget. She leads you through winding streets where the buildings rearrange themselves when you blink. You pass a courtyard where musicians are playing silence with alarming precision. A cat wearing a crown the size of a grape hops onto your shoulder and demands your name. You don't give it. Smart move. This city, this place of resonance and ruin, welcomes people like her, the ones who've held hands with ghosts and lived to whisper about it. The princess doesn't need directions. The streets bend for her. And where do they lead? To a library, of course. Because of course. But this one's different. Less scrolls and dust. More machinery. Brass gears, pulleys, pipes that hum. Books float. Some are alive. One tries to nibble your sleeve. It's part library, part workshop, part impossible cathedral. And at the very center, a machine made of bone and bronze. She built it. Well, not entirely. She finished it. See, the ghost left her something. A schematic. Incomplete. Scribbled in the margins of her dreams and etched into the backs of her eyelids. It's a machine meant to do one thing. Translate grief. You don't believe her at first, but as she assembles the last gear and turns the crank, you hear it. The sound of mourning made mechanical. It hisses, groans, sings, almost. A low melodic hum that reaches into your ribcage and asks if there's anything you need to let go of. The princess steps back and watches it work. This, she says softly, is how I survive him. The machine doesn't erase the ghost, doesn't bind him or bury him. It changes the weight. She inserts an object into it, a lock of her hair taken before the wedding. The machine spins. Out comes a tiny silver cube, smooth and warm. Memory, she says, refined. And you realize what she's doing, not just dispersing him. She's turning her story into something she can carry. Something useful. Something shareable. The city agrees. It shifts around her, almost bowing. Its buildings lean in. A wind rises, carrying the scent of myrrh and metal. You hear 1,000 whispered names, some hers, some not, twist through the air like thread through a needle. You follow her through markets selling emotions in bottles. You watch her offer advice to a woman with candlewick fingers. You see her gift a stranger a folded piece of paper that unfolds into a lullaby. This is what she's become, not just the woman who married a ghost, but the woman who learned how to use the haunting. And you're still walking beside her, still unsure what part you play. Shadow, witness, chronicler, maybe all three. She leads you to a small room overlooking the city's heart, a plaza where people gather to swap truths like dice. The sun hovers just above the horizon, never quite rising, never quite setting, a permanent in-between. She hands you something. It's a box, small wooden with a lock that opens when you whisper your truest regret. You do. Inside, a piece of her story, folded, breathing, waiting to be planted. Everyone should get to rewrite at least one ending, she says. That night you both sleep under a roof made of woven sighs. The dream that comes is not your own. You stand in a mirrored garden. He's there. The ghost. Not flickering this time, not decayed, just present, quiet. He looks at you with eyes like the edge of thunder. She is more than I deserved, he says. You nod. He fades. But not entirely. The next morning she's already awake, packing. She tells you it's time to go. You ask where. She doesn't answer, just smiles. And as you step out into the street, you notice something different. The city is already beginning to forget her. Not because it doesn't care, but because it knows her story is ready to move on. You take one last look back at the archive city. It does not wave goodbye, but it does rearrange one of its towers into the shape of a woman holding a lantern. You pretend not to notice. She pretends not to see. The road bends forward again, and now it's time for her to find the others. Because if there's one woman who married a ghost, there are probably more. Chapter 7. You're on the move again, but something has changed. The pace is slower now, more deliberate, like every step the princess takes is measured against something unseen. A weight, a rhythm. Maybe it's the echo of that city of memory still fading behind you. Maybe it's the shape of grief that lingers in her muscles even when she's smiling. You follow her through a forest this time. Not the dark, spooky kind, although let's be honest, it's not exactly a picnic either. These trees are tall and old. Their bark peels like parchment. Their roots coil beneath your boots like they're waiting for you to trip. You see faces in the branches if you stare too long. So you don't stare. She's headed to the Northlands now. No one calls it by any particular name, not anymore. But every traveler knows about the place where the dead don't quite stay put, and time has a habit of folding back on itself like an impatient letter. It's cold here, but not in the usual way. The cold has personality. It tests you. One day your breath fogs in perfect circles. The next it hums a lullaby you haven't heard since childhood. You don't ask why. She doesn't explain. She's searching. And what she finds, finally, is them. The others. 3 women, very different, but unmistakably like her. You meet them in a longhouse carved into the belly of a hill, lit only by lamps that burn with blue fire. They sit in a circle, wearing furs and fragments of silk, their hair braided with bone and thread. The first, Michelina, has eyes like melted snow. She married the ghost of a war chief who had died 6 times in battle, and once in a bakery accident no one likes to talk about. The second, Brenna, never speaks out loud. Her husband was a whisper from a salt mine near the Caspian Sea. She carries him in her left sleeve. Sometimes it moves on its own. The third, Lila, says she accidentally married a ghost while trying to curse an ex. She's the funny one. Each of them holds a piece of this strange club you didn't know existed. We don't call it surviving, Michelina says. We call it negotiating. You sit near the fire as they speak, and as the princess listens, because she didn't come here to lead. She came to learn. They share rituals, recipes. One of them involves burying a mirror in a field of clover during the waning moon. Another, boiling cloves until the steam reveals your regrets. That one makes your eyes water just hearing about it. They talk about love, what it means when your heart belongs to someone who has no pulse. It's not romantic, Layla says, chewing on something that might be a dried beet. It's like trying to build a house on a glacier, gorgeous but shifting under you every second. They talk about memory, how it warps, how it sweetens the parts that once burned. And they talk about returning. See, each of them left something behind when they chose their ghosts, a home, a sibling, a version of themselves that never got to grow up. And now, it's time to go back. That's why the princess is here, because it's her turn. You know what she left behind, don't you? The palace, the rose garden, the people who never stopped whispering her name, even when it became dangerous to say aloud. And her mother. You hadn't heard much about her mother until now. But on the third night, as frost paints the windows and the fire cracks open a knuckle of pine, the princess finally speaks. She didn't believe in ghosts, but she believed in silence. She thought if you didn't talk about something, it couldn't hurt you. And now, she's going home, not to reclaim the palace, but to see if anyone remembers her without the scandal, without the ghost, without the legend. The others nod. They've all done it. Some were welcomed, some were chased away. One had to duel a talking goat to get her name back. We don't talk about that one either. So the princess packs. Again, she wraps her memories in cloth and leaves the silver cube from the grief machine on the hearth. For the next one, she says, because there's always a next one. You head south now through a valley that smells like thawing soil and thyme. The wind here carries rumors. You hear her name once in a village market, spoken in a hush by an old man with missing teeth and a tattoo of a spiral on his neck. She was the girl who danced with the dead, he says. She's not a girl anymore, you reply. He doesn't argue. When you reach the outskirts of her old kingdom, things feel wrong. Too quiet. No banners. No bells, just a low fog curling along the ground like it's been waiting for her. She enters the city like a shadow, moving through back alleys and side doors. No one recognizes her. Not at first. Her hair is longer now, her eyes older. But as she nears the palace gates, something shifts. A guard steps forward, then another. You tense. She doesn't. She lifts her chin and says her name. It lands like thunder in a cathedral. Silence. Small, trembling. Open the gates. Her mother. Still alive. Still waiting. The reunion isn't loud or dramatic. Just two women in a garden, hands touching briefly, eyes full of the things they'll never say aloud. I thought you were lost, her mother says. I was, the princess replies, but I'm learning how to return. They don't talk about the ghost, not directly, but her mother sets a cup of tea in front of her and says, You carry more than just your name now. And the princess nods. Yes, but I carry it differently. That night, she doesn't sleep. Neither do you. You walk the halls of the palace that once cradled the start of this story. The tapestries are faded. The scent of roses is gone, but the bones of it remain, just like her. She stands at the same window she once gazed from, the first night after the wedding. And she says, I think I'm ready. For what, you ask? She turns to you, eyes clear, to become the story I was supposed to be. Chapter 8. The morning fog doesn't lift. It simply dissolves like it's decided it's done hiding what's next. And what is next? Her. The princess, in the city that once called her daughter, then ghost bride, then myth. Now she's just back. Not with fanfare, not with torches and parades, just a quiet step into her old world, wearing a coat stitched from 3 winters and a look that says, I'm not here to explain myself. You trail her into the marketplace. The stalls are quieter than you remember, fewer voices, fewer coins clinking. But the bones of it, still there, that same bakery, now with a crooked sign and a new owner who burns the bread slightly on purpose, swearing it adds character. That same old woman still selling oranges she calls sun fruit. And just across the square, a whisper. That's all it takes. Her name, barely spoken. And suddenly, people look. They recognize her, not instantly, not fully, but like remembering a song from childhood, blurry on the lyrics, but the melody's there. A young boy tugs his mother's sleeve. Is that the Princess Woe? She, the mother whispers. And so it begins. The rumors, the sideways glances, the cautious nods. It doesn't bother her, because she's not here to prove anything. She's here to listen To witness what changed, she visits the temple first, the one where, long ago, they held the cleansing rite before her wedding. The priestess is gone, replaced by a younger woman with ink-stained fingers and a scar running across her lip. She doesn't recognize the princess, but she recognizes the weight in her voice. Ghosts don't usually leave, the priestess says. No, the princess agrees. But I didn't ask him to. She lights incense. She hums a song you thought she'd forgotten. And then she leaves a coin on the altar, a new one, etched with her own symbol, a spiral wrapped in a flame. You walk with her next to the schoolhouse. It's been rebuilt, now painted blue and shaped like an open book. A little girl runs past, drops a satchel, and says, "My teacher says stories aren't real." The princess smiles. Then your teacher's never met one. And that night, she returns to the palace garden. It's overgrown now. No one maintained it. The roses have gone wild, choking fences and scaling walls like they're trying to remember sunlight. The fountain is dry. The pond has frogs the size of a toddler's face. You pretend not to notice when one of them waves at you. She steps into the thicket, brushes her hands against the thorns. "This is where he first appeared," she murmurs. "I thought he was a dream." "Was he?" you ask. She tilts her head. "Maybe, but a real one." She doesn't linger, doesn't sigh wistfully or pluck a symbolic rose. She just walks through, calm, clear, done. Because nostalgia is not the same as healing. And this garden, it's not hers anymore. The next day, she receives an invitation. A formal scroll, sealed with wax and written in the old style. It's from the royal court. Yes, that court. The one that tried to erase her. Apparently, they want a conversation. She laughs when she reads it. You don't. "I won't kneel," she says. "I know you say, but you go anyway." The court hasn't changed much. Still heavy with velvet and secrets. Still full of voices that echo like they're practicing for eternity. The council sits in a semicircle, dressed in muted silks that somehow smell expensive. And then she steps forward. No crown, no entourage, just her voice. "I'm not here to defend what I did," she says. "Good," one counselor mutters. She smiles. "I'm here because I came back, and because I'm still standing." Someone scoffs. "After marrying a dead man?" She nods. "Yes." Silence. Then she opens her satchel and places something on the floor. A cube. The same kind the grief machine produced. "What is that?" a woman asks. "Memory," the princess replies. Condensed. Measured, refined. She steps back. The cube hums faintly. Then begins to glow, not bright, just enough to cast shadows that move. And for a moment, they all see it. Not the ghost, but the echo, a flicker of her wedding. A blur of laughter, fire, and the slow unraveling of something ancient. The council goes still. Then one of them, the youngest, says, "What do you want?" And the princess tilts her head. "I want nothing from you," she says. "I came to remind you that I exist, and that you can't erase a woman by pretending she was a mistake." Then she walks out, and you follow. Into the light, into the street, into a city that now has to decide whether to rewrite its story. Later, you sit with her on the old palace steps. Children pass by, daring each other to wave. Some do. She waves back. You ask her what now. She considers. "I've been the bride, the exile, the return. So what next?" She smiles. "Now I become the map." You blink. "The what?" "The guide," she says. "The thing others follow. There are more like me out there. Women who touched death and didn't shatter. They deserve a path. And you'll build it." She leans back on her elbows, eyes on the dusk sky. "I already am." And just like that, the city shifts again. Not physically, but in the way it sees her. She is no longer the girl who vanished. She is the woman who returned. Whole, haunted, free. And maybe that's the most dangerous thing of all. Chapter 9. The first letter arrives wrapped in raven feathers. You find it waiting at the edge of the fountain before dawn, resting like it belongs there, the parchment dry despite the dew. No seal, just a simple spiral drawn in charcoal, like the ones the princess now carves absently into tree bark or bread crust. She doesn't act surprised when she sees it. "Took them long enough," she murmurs, cracking it open with one thumb. The letter is short, just 3 lines. "We heard what you did. We're ready to begin. Come north." She reads it 3 times, not for clarity, but for weight. Then she hands it to you, like this too is now yours to carry. So you go north. again. Because apparently, when you marry a ghost and survive it, you become something of a myth yourself. And myths? They attract seekers. This journey feels different from the last. Not heavier, not lighter, just charged. Like the land itself has started listening. You pass through towns where the wind speaks in half sentences. You stay in inns that leave lavender tucked into your pillow with notes that say, "For the echoes." You meet a woman who speaks only in questions, and another who hasn't aged in 2 decades because, according to her, she once kissed the memory of a year goodbye. You don't ask. The further north you go, the more the world loses its shape. Roads bend into loops. Villages appear and vanish. Time shrinks and swells like it's breathing. You measure your journey not by miles, but by strangeness. And then, at the top of a ridge so steep it almost laughs at your boots, you see it. A tower. Impossible. Floating 6 feet above the ground. Anchored by nothing. Wrapped in ivy that hasn't touched soil in centuries. This is where the message led her. And where, apparently, they are waiting. The Seekers. Not a cult. Not a religion. Something in between. A network of women, some bruised, some bitter, all burning, who also married the wrong things. Not all ghosts. Some fell in love with curses. Some bound themselves to stories they couldn't finish. Some just said yes when they should have run. But they all survived. Barely. And they all want what the princess now carries, translation. A way to make sense of what nearly unmade them. You enter the tower with her. There is no door. You simply say, "I remember," and the wall opens like paper splitting under rain. Inside, a circle of fire, a floor of bone-colored marble, and 12 women with names that change depending on who's asking. They rise when the princess enters, not out of reverence, but recognition. She is one of them now, maybe always was. They take her in gently, and for the next 3 days you do not see her, not fully. She vanishes into lessons you are not invited to. They teach her things no scroll has ever recorded, how to speak with wounds instead of hiding them, how to carry grief without dripping it on others, how to braid survival into a language. On the 4th day she returns, changed again, not dramatically, not with glowing eyes or floating steps, but quieter, more precise, like she's learned how to be heavy and light at the same time. She doesn't tell you everything, but you don't need her to. She shows you what she learned by sitting beside a stranger in the woods and whispering. You don't have to carry all of it, just the part that's still breathing. The stranger weeps, the princess does not. But she places a stone in the stranger's hand, a smooth black pebble with a spiral etched into its side. Start with this, she says. And then she stands. That becomes the pattern. She moves from village to village, town to town, not as royalty, not even as a ghost bride, but as a quiet storm of memory and compassion. People begin to expect her. They leave chairs empty in circles of women who've never spoken their truth aloud. They carve spirals into fence posts and tree trunks and alley bricks, not for summoning, just for solidarity. She teaches one woman how to build a grief machine out of copper and soot. She teaches another how to write a letter that forgets who it was angry at. She teaches a girl how to sing her father's name in a way that no longer makes her cry. And still the letters come, folded into fruit baskets, tied to kites, etched into bark. One arrives inside the mouth of a fox who waits patiently for payment and leaves with a chicken leg. She never says no, but she doesn't say yes to all of them either. Some hauntings need to linger a little longer, she tells you. They haven't told the truth yet. You write that one down. She begins to collect their stories. Not in a book, in a cloak. Every tale is sewn in, thread by thread, like scales on some strange, shimmering thing. By the time you reach the northernmost fjord, her cloak trails behind her like a tapestry of what the world was too afraid to remember. You meet a woman who once loved a river. It stole her name but taught her how to survive winter. You meet another who swore an oath to a shadow in exchange for her sister's voice. She doesn't regret it. And then there's the girl who buried a jar of tears under her house. When it cracked open, her dreams flooded. All of them carry pieces. And the princess? She stitches them into herself, not to own their pain, but to echo it. So when she speaks now, it's not just her voice. It's a chorus. Low, warm, broken in all the right places. One night, while you camp beside a salt-blasted cliff, she says, "I used to think I was cursed." "You're not," you ask. She shrugs. "Maybe, but if I am, it's the kind of curse that teaches you how to build with it." And you believe her, because by now the legend has grown beyond her. You hear children playing ghost wedding under moonlight, arguing over who gets to be the bride who survives. You see carvings of her spiral symbol appearing beside village wells. And once, just once, you hear a priest admit, maybe ghosts aren't evil. Maybe they're just stubborn. She smiles when you tell her that one, and adds a single bead to the edge of her cloak. Clear, smooth, heavy with memory. What's next? You ask, knowing she won't give a real answer. She doesn't disappoint. She just says, the world keeps forgetting. I'll keep reminding it. And as you fall asleep under that sky where stars sometimes rearrange themselves into letters you can't quite read, you realize something simple, powerful, and a little terrifying. This isn't the middle of the story, and it sure isn't the end. This is the beginning of something enormous. Something that might just wake the dead and teach them how to live. Chapter 10. The chill in the air sharpens as you follow the princess into the mountains where the clouds cling to the peaks like ancient secrets. You wonder, not for the first time, how many times she has walked this path, how many times a ghost bride has paced these stones, torn between worlds, and why this place feels both haunted and hopeful. Here, the landscape is a study in contrasts. Jagged cliffs dressed in moss, tiny wildflowers stubbornly poking through cracks, and the constant rush of unseen waterfalls singing a song older than kingdoms. The air tastes faintly of pine and cold smoke, and with every breath, you can almost taste the past, sharp and metallic, like the edge of a forgotten blade. She moves with a steady calm, her footsteps echoing softly over the stone as you climb higher. The silence between you stretches, filled only by the rush of wind and the distant cry of a lone hawk circling above. It's a silence that holds 1,000 unspoken words: grief, hope, longing, resolve. This mountain holds a story, one that's not written in books or whispered in village tales, but etched into the very rocks beneath your feet. Long ago, a princess, different from the one you follow, married a spirit of the mountain. Some say the spirit was a guardian, others say a curse. Historians still argue whether this union was meant to protect the kingdom or doom it to endless winter. The story is tangled, layered with myths and fragments of forgotten truths, but the core is simple: love, loss, and the fierce will to survive. The princess pauses near a cave mouth carved by wind and time. Inside, shadows dance like living things, the walls slick with ice and mystery. She reaches out, tracing a spiral carved deep into the stone, one that mirrors the symbol she's carried since her return. Each spiral, she says softly, tracing her finger along the ancient cave walls, is a story waiting to be told. You lean closer, peering inside the winding formation carved by time itself. Faint etchings, faces frozen mid-expression, delicate hands reaching out, animals caught mid-leap fill the spirals. Their shapes tell silent tales of joy, sorrow, and sacrifice, locked forever in an eternal dance beneath the mountain. There's a strange comfort in their stillness, as if the cave itself is a guardian of forgotten memories. Without hesitation, the princess steps inside the cave's mouth, her movements sure and steady despite the chill that wraps around her like an old, familiar cloak. You follow, the frozen floor crunching beneath your boots, careful not to slip as the light dims and the cold deepens. Deeper in, the cave widens into a vast chamber. The walls glow faintly, bathed in an otherworldly blue light emanating from countless crystals embedded in the stone. Their ethereal luminescence casts flickering shadows that dance like restless spirits, bending the air with memories long past. The princess kneels at the chamber center and pulls from her cloak a small bundle of dried herbs, lavender for peace, sage for cleansing, and a sweet, unfamiliar herb she calls heart's ease. She places the bundle on a flat stone altar and strikes a flint, lighting the herbs. Smoke curls upward, thick and fragrant, filling the chamber with a calming haze that settles over you both like a whispered blessing. Closing her eyes, the princess begins to hum, a low, resonant tune that seems to ripple through the crystals themselves. The melody is ancient, passed down through generations of the seekers, a ritual song of binding. It is a vow to the mountain, to the lingering ghosts, and most of all, a promise to herself, that she will carry their stories, their sorrows, their love. As the smoke swirls upward, faint figures begin to emerge from the mist, ghostly silhouettes of women who once lived and loved in the village below. Their faces are soft and sad, their hands reaching toward the princess in recognition, whispers of names you don't know brushing against your ears like a breeze. The princess's eyes flutter open, now shimmering with a strange light that is not entirely her own. They're here, she murmurs, waiting for someone to remember them. It becomes clear that this moment is no mere reunion, but a reckoning, an embrace between the living and the dead, the past and the present. Outside, the wind rises, howling through the mountain's crevices like a chorus of forgotten voices. The cave seems to breathe alongside her, alive with the weight of memory and magic. She turns to you, her voice steady, touched by awe. We carry them all, the lost, the forgotten, the broken. Through us they live again. You ask as she fears becoming lost to this world forever, swallowed whole by shadows and memories. She shakes her head gently. I've learned that to be lost is simply to be found in another way. The journey out is slow, each step heavier than the last, as if the very mountain beneath her feet is reluctant to relinquish its ghost bride. The air grows thick with an almost tangible sorrow, and the walls seem to hum a mournful song only she can hear. The crystal's glow dims and brightens in waves, as though the mountain breathes alongside her, holding its ancient secrets close. Her hands brush the cold rock with a gentle reverence, fingers tracing the spiral carvings that whispered their stories moments ago. The silence presses in, not cruel but profound, like a final embrace from something vast and eternal. You notice her breath, steady but measured, a calm defiance against the weight pulling at her soul. At last, the cave's mouth yawns open, and the princess steps out into the waiting world. Above, the clouds part slowly, as if the sky itself has been watching, waiting for this moment. A shaft of sunlight spills over the mountain's edge, warming her face with a golden benediction. Down below, the village lies quiet in the fading light, shadows stretching long across familiar rooftops and cobblestone streets. But this time, something is different. As she approaches, the people, once hesitant and wary, gather with quiet reverence. They do not lower their eyes or whisper behind cupped hands. Instead, they speak her name aloud, voices clear and steady, carrying the weight of newfound respect. You watch her walk among them, her cloak sweeping the ground in a trail of stories. Each thread seems alive, woven with the echoes of countless lives intertwined with hers. Ghosts remembered, loves lost and reclaimed, histories rewritten in soft light. And as the night draws its velvet curtain across the sky, you wonder how many more tales she will gather, how many restless spirits will find their way home, because one princess dared to marry a ghost, and, against all odds, chose to live. Chapter 11. As the seasons shift and the earth exhales the breath of change, you and the princess find yourselves drawn toward the wild edge of the world, the coast where the ocean cradles its own collection of ghosts. Here, the salt tang in the air bites sharply at your skin, a sharp reminder that even the sea holds memory, of shipwrecks shattered on jagged rocks, of drowned sailors whose names are swallowed by the tides, of whispered curses carried on the breath of salty winds. The village clings precariously to cliffs, as if daring the relentless waves to claim it. Weathered faces, etched by years of salt and sun, regard you both with quiet curiosity and guarded welcome. Their stories ripple like the sea itself, filled with gifts and grudges, love and loss. The princess moves among them like the tide, sometimes calm and gentle, sometimes fierce and unyielding, always inevitable. You notice how the village children watch her with wide, searching eyes, as if they glimpse something beyond her form, a shimmer, a ripple in the very fabric of their world. One evening, as the sun bleeds molten orange and pink into the horizon, she leads you to an ancient lighthouse. Its light long extinguished, the tower leans against time itself, battered by storms and neglect. The wooden door creaks as you enter, dust motes swirling in the fading light. The spiral symbol, familiar from the mountain cave, is carved deep into the worn beams, a quiet signature left by those who came before. The princess's fingers trace the carving with reverence, her voice barely above a whisper. Lighthouses, she says, are for those lost in darkness, a guide home. Her words carry more than their surface meaning. You remember the grief machine she once built, the memory cubes she gathered, the cloak woven from countless stories, each a light meant to pierce the shadows of forgetting. Outside, the ocean rumbles like a sleeping beast, waves pounding the cliffs below with ancient rhythm. Beneath that restless surface, the princess tells you, lie secrets even ghosts fear to touch. That night, beneath a sky thick with stars like scattered diamonds, she shares the tale of the drowned bride, a woman taken by the sea on her wedding night, who returned as something other, something neither fully alive nor dead. Villagers still leave offerings at the shore, ribbons tangled in driftwood, wildflowers laid on smooth stones, and songs sung softly in the dark. Historians debate endlessly whether the drowned bride ever truly existed, or if her story is a warning spun to keep young women from wandering too far into the night. But the princess believes, truly believes, in the power of legend to hold truths that mere facts can never capture. Facts are brittle, confined to the narrow lines of history books, easily forgotten or dismissed. But legends live in the breath between words, in the silence after a story is told, in the hearts of those who dare to remember. They carry truths buried deep beneath the surface of time, woven into the very fabric of myth, where sorrow and hope entwine and endure. She kneels at the water's edge, the cold sea licking at her fingertips, dark and endless before her. The night sky mirrors the depths, vast, mysterious, and filled with unseen life. Slowly, reverently, she lifts her hand from the ocean, letting droplets fall one by one like quiet promises. Each bead of water sparkles briefly in the moonlight before disappearing into the sand, as solemn vows sent out to the souls who wait beneath the waves, lost brides, forgotten sailors, whispered voices calling from beneath the tides. Her eyes, reflecting the stars above and the sea below, hold a profound tenderness, an understanding forged through her journey among ghosts and memories. She turns to you, and in that fleeting moment, a smile touches her lips, a smile touched by something ancient, something knowing. It is the smile of one who has touched the boundary between worlds, who has embraced both loss and love, who carries the weight of remembering so others might be remembered too. You ask her softly, almost afraid of the answer, as she fears becoming one of those ghosts herself, lost to the world of the living, forever drifting in the space between. She pauses, the flicker of that ancient light deepening in her eyes, and then she whispers, "Maybe." Her voice is gentle but unwavering. The waves crash and hiss against the cliffs, like the heartbeat of the earth itself, relentless, enduring, alive. And as you watch her silhouette framed by the restless sea and the endless sky, it becomes clear that her story, like the ocean, holds depths yet unexplored, mysteries yet unsolved, and truths that rise and fall like the tides. And just as the sea connects all shores, so too will the stories she carries connect the living with the lost, an unbroken thread of memory stretching across time, finding hearts and souls in the endless dance between what was and what still is. Chapter 12. The air grows heavy with the scent of sandalwood and burning paper as you cross the threshold into the ancient city, an ageless place where scholars and mystics weave knowledge and magic into a tapestry more intricate than any cloth. Every alleyway pulses with the hum of whispered spells and secret histories. The walls seem alive with echoes of the past. The dusty libraries carry the musty scent of old parchment, ink fading but never forgotten, and the quiet breath of lost dreams. The princess moves through the labyrinthine streets with effortless grace, as if the city itself recognizes her, a ghost bride walking among seekers of truth. You follow closely, watching how the cobblestones seem to guide her steps toward the great library, a towering fortress of wisdom and mystery. Its stone facade is worn by centuries, but stands resolute, guarding countless manuscripts and scrolls that map the histories of forgotten kingdoms and vanished souls. She pauses before a worn tome bound in cracked leather, its pages brittle with age. The spiral symbol, faint, almost erased by time, is etched on the cover like a secret waiting to be remembered. History isn't always written by the victors, she murmurs, voice barely above the hush of the room. Sometimes it's hidden by them. Scholars still debate whether this library served as a sanctuary for truth or a prison for inconvenient stories. For the princess, it is a trove of buried memories, and she is here to unearth what was deliberately forgotten. Within the labyrinth of texts, she loses herself in tales of ghost marriages, pacts made in desperation, in love, and sometimes in defiance of fate. These unions, recorded as curses by some and miracles by others, thread through history like fragile yet unbreakable bonds. One legend speaks of a princess who wove a cloak from the memories of the departed, much like the one she now wears, each thread a story stitched into eternity. You watch her fingers tremble as they trace the faded ink beneath flickering candlelight, the boundary between myth and history dissolving into shadows and whispers. But this city is not merely a vault of forgotten words. It breathes with a living magic, ancient and palpable. Later, in a quiet courtyard cloaked in twilight, you see her perform a ritual of remembrance. She releases delicate paper lanterns, each one carrying a name, a wish, a memory, softly glowing sparks that ascend toward the heavens. She whispers as the lanterns float upward, "We carry their stories so they don't carry us." You wonder, silently, how many lives have been touched by this vast, intricate web of memory the princess weaves. How many restless souls, burdened by pain or longing, have found solace in the stories she carries, each thread a lifeline thrown across the chasm between past and present. And how many more will come, drawn by the faint light she offers in the darkness, seeking refuge, truth, or simply the hope of being remembered? As the night deepens and shadows lengthen, a scholar steps forward from the flickering candlelight, cradling an ornate artifact with reverence. It is a mirror unlike any you have seen, its frame carved with twisting vines and ancient runes, its glass shimmering with a strange, almost liquid clarity. The scholar whispers that this mirror does not show the face, but the shadow of the soul, the hidden echoes that shape who we are beyond flesh and bone. Without hesitation, the princess reaches out and accepts the mirror, holding it steady beneath the warm glow of the candle flame. The glass seems to ripple and breathe, revealing not just her reflection, but flickering, ghostly images swirling within its depths. Faces of those she has saved, the spectral brides and forgotten spirits she has married in her heart, the countless stories sewn into her cloak. Their features merge with hers in a silent, eternal dance, a tapestry of memory and love intertwined. A soft smile curves her lips, quiet but radiant, a strength born not of power, but of compassion and unwavering purpose. Her eyes gleam with the weight of lives carried, of histories reclaimed, and of futures yet to be written. "This is who I am," she says simply, her voice steady and clear, carrying the quiet power of acceptance and purpose. A bride of ghosts, a keeper of stories, and a guide for the lost. Her words hang in the air, resonant and profound, as if spoken not just to you, but to the very walls of the ancient library, to the countless spirits resting in forgotten pages, and to the wandering souls still searching for their place. Outside, the ancient bells of the city toll through the night, their deep, sonorous echoes weaving like a slow chant through the stone streets and shadowed alleys. The sound ripples across rooftops, through narrow courtyards, and over the distant hills, an eternal call that bridges worlds. In that moment, you see with new clarity the true depth of her journey. It is far more than a passage between life and death, or a quest to rescue lost souls. It is a luminous thread, fragile yet unbreakable, weaving past and future together into a tapestry vast and infinite. Her path binds every soul who came before with those who have yet to come, a sacred promise that none will ever truly be swallowed by darkness or forgotten in the void of time. She is both a guardian and a beacon, her very existence a testament to the power of memory and love to transcend mortality. Through her, stories live, shadows find light, and the dead continue to dance in the hearts of the living. And as the bells toll on, their music a haunting lullaby of remembrance and hope, you realize that this weaving will never end. It stretches onward, through generations, carrying the weight and wonder of countless lives, each one a spark in the endless night. Chapter 13. The chill in the air shifts as you journey eastward, toward the vast steppe where the horizon stretches endlessly beneath a sky so wide it threatens to swallow you whole. The wind here is ancient, carrying whispers from the earth itself, soft, haunting murmurs that ride the waves of grass, bending like an ocean of green and gold. The princess walks ahead, alone for a time, her cloak trailing behind her like a river of stories spilling out to merge with the horizon. Each step she takes seems to pull from the soil memories too old to speak aloud, histories written not on parchment, but in the very breath of the land. You follow, your boots stirring the dust of ancient battles and forgotten tribes, their spirits lingering in the air like a half-remembered dream. This land is older than kingdoms, home to nomads who danced with spirits beneath the stars, shamans who conversed with the sky, and brides who married not men, but elements, binding their fates to wind, fire, and earth. As the sun dips low, painting the sky in bruised purples and molten gold, the princess stops beside a solitary tree, a gnarled and twisted sentinel, its bark rough like the hands of time. She kneels, reverently tracing the spiral etched deep into its heartwood, then pulls from her cloak a tiny amulet, a circle bearing the spiral you have come to recognize as a sign of binding. With delicate fingers, she presses the amulet into the tree's core, whispering a name lost to the shifting sands of history, a name carried on the wind, waiting to be heard again. "You can hear it, can't you?" she asks, her voice barely above the hum of the wind. You close your eyes and strain to listen. Just beyond the rustling grass, beneath the sighing sky, there is a faint melody, an echo of an ancient song, sung long ago by women who carried grief like armor and hope like a hidden blade. Historians still argue whether the ghosts of the steppe are tied to place or memory. Some say the spirits wander freely, untethered but bound by stories told in the flickering light of campfires. Others believe they linger because they must, caught between worlds, waiting for a bridge to be built. The princess kneels, eyes closed, and begins to chant, a sound that rises with the wind, soft at first, then growing strong and commanding. It is a language older than words, made of breath and silence, and the spaces between heartbeats. You watch as the air around her shimmers like a veil pulled thin. For a moment, the ghosts of the steppe appear, faint and translucent, robed in flowing fabrics that ripple like the grass itself. Their faces are serene but marked by sorrow, their eyes reflecting a history of endurance and loss. They reach toward her, longing and hopeful, and she reaches back, steady and sure, an unspoken promise passing between them. When the chant ends, the spirits smile, a blessing or a farewell, you cannot tell. The moment lingers, fragile and sacred. She rises, tears glistening in her eyes, but held back with quiet strength. "This land remembers," she says softly, "and so do I. That night, beneath a sky littered with stars, you camp beside a fire. The princess's cloak is spread out beside you like a map of loss, survival, and the endless threads that connect them. She tells you stories of brides who married storms, women who carried lightning in their hair and thunder in their hearts, of mothers who bargained with the wind itself to save their children, trading breath for breath, hope for hope. Her voice is low, full of reverence and the weight of memory. You realize then that her story, tangled with theirs, is one of endurance, a testament to carrying impossible burdens without breaking, to weaving grief and love into a cloak strong enough to shelter many. Before sleep claims you, your thoughts drift to the spirals carved into the ancient tree bark, to the songs whispered by the wind, and to the quiet courage of the princess who married a ghost, and keeps walking forward, forever entwined with the spirit she carries. Chapter 14. Your journey leads you now to the great city where stone meets sky, an ancient metropolis that rises with a grandeur both daunting and beautiful. Towering spires reach for the heavens, their peaks lost in swirling mists, while labyrinthine streets wend beneath arches carved with spirals that seem to pulse softly, like a heartbeat etched in stone. Each spiral is a living memory, worn smooth by the passage of countless footsteps and whispered prayers. This city hums with life and history, a place where magic and politics intertwine in an intricate, almost dangerous dance. Markets overflow with vibrant colors, merchants shout their exotic wares, and artisans craft delicate amulets that shimmer with enchantment. The scent of incense lingers in the air, mixing with the earthy aroma of stone and the faint tang of ancient magic. The princess moves through this living tapestry as if she belongs to its very fabric. Her every step is deliberate, each glance measured, as if the city itself responds to her presence. The weight of her cloak, heavy with the stories she carries, seems to anchor her amid the swirling currents of power and history. You notice the way the city's shadows stretch long, weaving themselves around her like silent sentinels, as though the darkness itself remembers the arrival of a bride who walks between worlds. She leads you through crowded plazas and silent courtyards, past murals faded with age yet still vibrant in spirit, depictions of brides who married not just men but spirits, elements, and ghosts, weaving their destinies into the fabric of the city's soul. You feel the pulse of ancient stories beneath your feet, a rhythm both haunting and hopeful. At last she brings you to the Hall of Echoes, a vast chamber carved deep into the bedrock of the city's oldest quarter. The great doors, hewn from blackened oak and inlaid with spirals of silver, creak open to reveal an interior bathed in twilight. The walls are etched with symbols and scripts from forgotten tongues, each carving humming faintly with the memories of voices long silenced. The air here is heavy yet alive, a place where the past lingers like a breath held too long, a breath waiting to be released. Fragments of whispered conversations, laughter, cries, and sighs ripple through the silence, their presence tangible as if the stones themselves were listening, remembering. The princess steps to the center of the hall, and you see the spirals embroidered on her cloak begin to glow with a soft, pulsating light. It is a light that seems to pulse in rhythm with the murmurs around her, a quiet power that stirs the very air. She raises her hands slowly, palms open and upward, as the echoes swell into a chorus, a rising tide of voices yearning to be heard. The sound is both beautiful and heartbreaking, a symphony of forgotten lives reaching out from the shadows to touch the living. Scholars and skeptics debate endlessly whether the hall was built to preserve memory or to imprison spirits too restless to find peace. Yet here, in this hallowed place, the princess is determined to weave a new story, one that honors the lost without binding them, that frees memory instead of trapping it. She begins to chant, her voice low and resonant, a melody ancient and strange that rises and falls with the rhythm of the echoes. Her words are not of any language you recognize, but they carry meaning deeper than speech, threading the scattered voices into a tapestry of sound and silence. The gathered crowd, villagers, scholars, mystics, stands hushed, watching in awe as the atmosphere thickens with presence. Time seems to waver, the boundary between past and present dissolving like mist before dawn. Within the chorus, you hear the soft lullaby of a mother singing to a child who will never wake. You catch a soldier's farewell whispered across a battlefield turned to dust. A lover's promise lingers, fragile and sweet, as if suspended on a breath. Each voice is distinct, yet woven seamlessly into the princess's song, creating a living mosaic of memory, pain, love, and hope. When the chant ends, the hall falls into a profound silence, broken only by a gentle hum, a subtle vibration of healing that spreads through the stones and into the hearts of all present. She turns to you, her eyes reflecting the flickering light of the city beyond, calm and resolute. Stories are not just to remember, she says softly, but to heal. In that moment, you see clearly the transformation she has undergone. No longer simply a bride haunted by ghosts, she has become a keeper of collective memory, a guardian standing firm at the delicate boundary between life and death, between what was and what may yet be. Through her, the forgotten find voice. Through her, the broken are made whole. Through her, the past and future intertwine in an endless spiral. Around you, the city breathes, a living mosaic of possibility and memory. Its ancient walls seem to pulse gently, alive with the faint, steady hum of countless lives that have come before and those still unfolding. Faint carvings worn smooth by time shimmer in the candlelight, each spiral and symbol a silent testament to stories waiting patiently in the stones. The air carries a subtle resonance, as if the very fabric of the city is vibrating with the promise of new tales yet to be whispered, new lives yearning to be honored, and fresh echoes ready to be woven seamlessly into the ever-expanding tapestry of time. The crowd begins to disperse slowly, their footsteps soft on the stone floors, voices hushed but charged with reverence. Whispers ripple like a gentle breeze, carrying words of gratitude, awe, and hope. You catch fragments of conversations. She has healed the wounds of our past, one voice says. The lost are finally remembered, murmurs another. Children peer back at the princess with wide eyes full of wonder, while elders bow their heads, lips moving silently in prayer or thanks. You watch the princess stand quietly at the center of the hall, her figure serene and steadfast. Her cloak, heavy and intricately embroidered, wraps around her like a living mantle of history, a radiant emblem of endurance and grace. Each thread seems to shimmer faintly with the memories of those she carries, every stitch a story, every fold a promise kept. There is a calm strength in her stillness, as if she holds the weight of countless souls with effortless dignity. The soft flicker of candlelight dances across her face, illuminating the quiet determination in her eyes, eyes that have seen grief and healing, loss and love, darkness and light. Around her, the hall seems to exhale, a collective breath of release and renewal. And then, as the last bell tolls, its deep, sonorous sound rolling through the city like a sacred benediction, you feel the moment shift. The sound resonates through your very bones, echoing through the corridors of history and into the present. It is a call, not to an end, but to a beginning. You realize with a profound certainty that this is not the conclusion of her journey, but the dawn of a new chapter. For as long as stories breathe and live, as long as memory clings to shadow and light, she will be their bride, the eternal keeper of stories, and the unwavering guide for the lost. Her path will wind through time itself, forever weaving the living and the lost into one seamless whole, a tapestry that stretches beyond horizons and generations, where every whispered name and forgotten face finds its place in the endless spiral of remembrance. Chapter 15. The journey leads you finally to a quiet village nestled deep within a valley, where the morning mist clings to the earth like a soft, silken blanket. The air here is thick with the scent of pine needles and damp soil, a fragrant reminder that even the heaviest stories, worn and weathered, can find a place to rest, to breathe, to be cradled by time. The village feels timeless, a sanctuary where past and present fold gently into one another. The houses, simple and sturdy, are framed by bloomy wildflowers and winding cobblestone paths, their windows glowing softly with the promise of hearth fires burning within. The princess moves through the village with a serene grace, her cloak of memories shimmering faintly in the early light like a living tapestry woven from countless souls. Children gather around her shyly, their eyes wide and bright with wonder, as she speaks softly, sharing stories of the ghosts she married, not as figures of fear, but as steadfast companions on a long, winding road. Her voice carries warmth and reverence, inviting them to see the unseen threads connecting all lives, both living and lost. She leads you to the heart of the village, a vast ancient oak tree standing proudly at the center of a small square. Its massive branches stretch upward, knotted and gnarled like the hands of time itself, reaching as if to embrace the endless sky. The bark is thick and scarred, bearing deep spirals carved long ago, each groove a silent testament to the stories and souls carried here through generations. Together, you kneel in the soft earth beneath the oak and plant a small sapling beside it, a tender symbol of growth, renewal, and the promise of peace yet to come. The princess's hands are steady and sure as she presses the roots gently into the soil, her fingers tracing the spiral amulet tied around her neck. The sapling sways lightly in the breeze, a living emblem of hope springing from the soil of memory. Historians still debate fiercely whether the ghosts that wander this valley are truly laid to rest, or if they linger, quietly waiting for the next story, another thread in the endless tapestry to keep them company through the long night. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the vast sky with broad strokes of molten gold, tender blushes of soft rose, and fading washes of lavender, the world seems to hold its breath. The light stretches long and thin, casting a warm, honeyed glow over the valley, turning leaves into flickering flames and bathing the princess in an ethereal halo. She wraps her cloak tighter around her shoulders, the fabric heavy with the weight of countless memories, yet somehow comforting, like the embrace of a friend who has journeyed beside her through every shadow. The fading light catches in her eyes, turning them into a kaleidoscope of emotion, a swirling mix of sorrow and hope, loss and resilience, grief tempered by an unyielding strength that has been forged in fire and tempered by time. For a moment, those eyes hold the vastness of all she has seen and carried, the joy, the pain, the countless stories stitched into the tapestry of her life. She turns toward you, and her smile is soft, fragile yet fierce, a quiet defiance against forgetting, a gentle promise that no story truly fades away. Her voice drops to a whisper carried tenderly on the breeze. Every story ends, but none truly vanish. As twilight deepens, one by one, the village lights flicker to life, warm pools of amber glow spilling from windows, lanterns swaying gently in the evening air. They sparkle like stars that have been plucked from the heavens and set gently upon the earth, casting a soft radiance that bathes the village in a serene, timeless peace. The village breathes in the hush of dusk, cradled by the quiet embrace of nightfall, the rhythms of life slowing to a calm heartbeat. And as the night grows still and full of untold possibility, you find yourself wrapped not only in the gentle night air, but in the profound truth of what you have witnessed. This journey, the princess's journey, is far more than a tale of ghosts or curses. It is the sacred power of stories made flesh, stories that heal wounds too deep for time alone, that weave broken hearts back together across the expanse of loss, and that keep memory and love burning bright, ever vibrant, ever alive in the spaces between past and future. As you close your eyes, the princess's final words linger like a soft caress on your soul, a gentle whisper drifting through the cool night air, as delicate and profound as a secret shared between kindred spirits. Love is the story that never dies. As the night wraps around you, slow your breath and let the gentle rhythm of the story fade softly into your dreams. The princess's journey, with all its shadows and light, reminds you that even the heaviest tales carry seeds of hope and renewal. So rest now, knowing that the ghosts are not always to be feared. They are, sometimes, the guardians of memory, the keepers of love's endless story. Let the quiet hum of the night soothe you, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant call of night birds, and the gentle pulse of the earth beneath. Breathe in peace, breathe out worry, and drift into a sleep as deep and comforting as the stories carried in the princess's cloak. Good night and sweet dreams.